Hi, Kerry. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well indeed. Very nice to hear
Good.
from you too. That's great. So, are you ready for me to start firing a few questions at you?
You just do exactly what you do, and I'll try and answer them as best as I can.
Going back then, Kerry, to sort of the very beginnings of music, as a kid, really, what sort of early musical memories do you have? What sort of started you thinking that music might be your thing?
Well, I grew up in a musical household. My dad, who passed away quite recently, actually, he
Bless.
he was a jazz saxophonist, and he was an itinerant music teacher through the day. But we worked together a lot in musical situations, doing jazz gigs and festivals and weddings and all
Yeah.
those sort of things. But so that's probably where I got the germ from, as well as my mother. My mum's a very artistic person, probably a little bit sort of left of centre than my father. Maybe that's where I got a lot of it too.
Mm.
And then as I got older, I started listening to a lot of different type of music. There was jazz always in the house, but I stretched myself a bit, I guess. Once I heard things, artists like Boss Skaggs
Yeah.
and Algernon Toto and Steely Dan, especially,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where I started to sort of think, well, okay, that I really want to be. I really want to be in the music industry either as an artist or as a sideman or something, anything, because I just adored music.
Wow.
That was pretty much what it was, yeah,
Wonderful.
and still is, I should say.
No, that's really good, and thank you for sharing that. As you sort of were growing up, I mean, there must have come a time when you thought, well, actually, I'm pretty good at this music thing. I'd like to make it a lifetime thing. How did that come about?
I actually remember that distinctly. The first time I ever did a recording session was with a sextet that I was playing with at school, at high school.
Yeah.
And we went into a recording studio and we played, six tunes, and I got a chance to. I don't ever do it much anymore, but I got a chance to do a drum solo and hear myself playing. And then I thought to myself, wow, this is, when I was looking on the back of records and seeing all these amazing musicians and artists, playing for other people, that's sort of where I wanted to head, because I thought it's not only cool, but it felt like the right thing to do, because, playing, being a studio musician, basically, but, doing sessions, maybe playing on jingles and records and movie dates or whatever.
Yeah.
That appealed to me, that turned me on.
So what instruments do you play? What's your sort of scope there? Because obviously, I mean, this morning you were saying you were sitting at the piano, so obviously you play keys.
Yeah.
So what's your thing on drums? You just mentioned. So,
well, I guess I've made my living out of being a drummer for pretty much most of my life. When I left school at age 15, 16, I joined a big band, and went on the road. And so drums has always been my sort of primary instrument, although I started learning piano very early on. I was about 3 or 4 years old. So harmony was always intrigued. I was always intrigued by harmony, I should say.
yes.
So drums is probably the way I probably make a living, but as a sideman. But I do. I arrange, compose. I don't really sing, but I do. I do backing vocals and things on my records, and so I'm okay at it. But I learned the trumpet too as a kid, so I can sort of arrange brass and things like that. So I sort of get that side of it. So yeah, there's a few sort of feathers to my cap. I wouldn't say I'm great at all of them, but I've got a good understanding of a lot of those sides of rhythm section, playing brass, arranging, production, to make some records, I guess,
Wonderful. Yeah. Your voice, I mean, from listening to your albums, I mean, you are there on the voice, but you say you sort of take a backing level on that?
Yeah. I guess my records conceptually are sort of probably, I'm a massive, huge lover of vocal music, any vocal music, whether it be really in any language. as long as the music content and the lyric content is there, I can listen to Ivan Lin's Portuguese, Japanese artists.
Yeah.
So my records conceptually are more. I invite others to sort of bring my songs to life, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Well, they certainly are alive, that's for sure, Kere.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. I'm glad that.
Yeah. So where does there's a lot of soul in your songs. Where does that soul come from, do you think? What's the influence there?
I think it's growing up because I'm 46 now, and so the late 70s, the mid 70s probably was where I really started to get into music. That later period of the disco period, I sort of got a bit lost in that because it didn't really turn me on that much. But the songs are still good. So I guess that era of music, I think right up until the early 90s was that for me. That I just listened to a lot of that wonderful, R&B and soul music, Marvin Gaye, Donny Hathaway, right through to Quincy Jones, and Luther Vandross and Stevie Wonder, and even and sort of harder edge sort of rock things, I guess, around that time. Even Toto and Steely Dan, and even bands like sort of Van Halen and Motorhead. Yeah. I'll stretch it that far, but it was all the songs were good, and so that's probably where. I sort of got my. I think you can like Joni Mitchell too. It's all about great lyric and great songs. And but I would probably suggest maybe that the West Coast jazz period between sort of 78 to 86 was probably the thing that really sort of turned me on the most.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So you mentioned quite a few sort of A-listers there. Would you say that they were your sort of childhood idols, your Stevie Wonders, and going right the way across the board to sort of Steely Dan and so on? Would you say those were the ones that you kind of aspired to be like back in those days? Yeah,
when there were certain sort of poignant things, I guess, in my life as I'm getting older, and I look back on them too. When I saw We Are the World with Quincy Jones standing there conducting all those great artists, that made me go, wow, that's something else. And when I first heard Steely Dan's Asia, that record, when I first heard Black Cow, and Boskag's Silk Degrees, that's oh man, that's I've got to get involved in that. That's what really turned me on.
Wow. Yeah, and you say that with such great passion as well. I mean, are there any sort of figures outside of music that inspire you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I love art. I love poetry. I can't say I've read a lot recently, but I mean, it all would probably come from an artistic point of view. I love anyone that can live outside the box, not just sort of confined to what society tells you. That also I walk away from that sort of stuff. But anything that sort of that intrigues me as an artist, and poetry definitely. And I remember the first time I went to the Louvre in France, in Paris, and I went to the d'Orsay, and I mean, you walk around and you just look at these wonderful pieces of art, these things that just I just stare at them, and go, where did this come from? Listening to Beethoven, listening to Mozart, and it's just amazing pieces of, so probably not much else. I mean, I don't really try and get involved in religion or politics too much because it's most of it's just bullshit. But the arts, especially anything that really turns me on. Comedy too. Comedy's great. I mean, I think right now Ricky Gervais is probably my favourite because I just love the fact that he lives right outside the box, Right. And Carl Pilkington too. He's great.
Well, talking outside of the box, Kere. I mean, you jump genres very easily, don't you? Because I've heard some of your tunes done in different ways. Sometimes in a very rock way, sometimes in a very soulful way. one of them was at the Kerosene Project. Is that?
Oh yeah.
You know,
did I send you that?
I have received that. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little bit outside of genre for what we play on the station, but does
Of course,
give a great reflection of your ability to move in a sort of multi-genre, outside of the box environment. So, you know,
I don't think good music isn't genre based, and that's just my personal point of view. I mean, I can listen to anything from the Sex Pistols right through to Debussy. It's music to me that and whether it's and I said this on an interview a little while ago too, and this is so true and it's poignant. A colleague of mine that lives in America now, his manager at the time went to LA for to like a Sony conference or something like that, a BMG or something like that. And I think it was late 80s, early 90s. And he walked to the bar. And Quincy Jones was standing at the bar and he introduced himself and they started chatting. And he just said, look, I'm developing some artists down in Australia. And he said, can you give me any words of advice? And he said, I'll give you 3 words of advice. And he said, songs, songs, songs. Wow. So at the end of the day, it's not really about, I mean, we live in such a weird society, musically digital sort of disposable age now, but really for me, it's not genre based, it's songs. And, great songs are great songs. I mean, anything from the Beatles, like I've just said, so nothing is, and even production wise, stylistically, orchestrating and arrangement, it's no different to me than having a full 60-piece orchestra or having a country band like a bluegrass thing, like Dolly Parton thing. It's the same to me. As long as the songs are great and the production works, it's great music. That's just how I sort of look at things. So, yeah, I mean, I'm proud of that Kerosene record too. I mean, we were making it up as Glenn and I went along, but it's a good sounding record, I think, and I think it's good. It's good to step outside your comfort zone and try and sort of make music in different ways if you can, and if you can't, then I can understand that. But if you can, try and sort of push the balls around a bit to try and sort of make things sound a bit different.
Well, versatility and being able to, sort of step into other forms, I think it is great within music. I mean, especially from an opportunity point of view. The other 2 albums that you sent us were the Goodbye Yesterday album and also the Starting Over albums, which are both absolutely fabulous. And we featured tunes in our rotation from both.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
One of them was 2009, and that was was it Starting Over? Was
That's
a
right.
2009 album, which was the older of the 2 albums we've got, and there's definite a progression there in it. I mean, for you, what with the latter one, Goodbye Yesterday, I mean, what sort of inspiration was behind that? It's a great collection of tunes, and I just wondered what your feelings were behind that particular album.
If you don't mind, I'll step back to 2009 just briefly. I was sort of making it up. Well, I make everything up anyway, because I think most artists or anyone that says to you they know exactly what they're doing, I think they're just talking bullshit, because they don't. They're actually making it up. They might have some sort of a direction, an avenue, and maybe some sort of formula. I didn't have any formula. I had no direction. I didn't know what I was doing. And I just brought a bunch of, guys together in the studio and got a bunch of songs quite quickly. I should have taken a bit longer, and made Starting Over. And some of it's good. Some of it, it's not quite as good as I probably, if I listen to it. I haven't listened to it for quite a while, but if I was to listen to it, I don't even need to, because I know what I did wrong. But so it's a learning curve. So this one, I really dug deep on the writing and spent 5-6 weeks just sitting here at home, just working on chord progressions, and I had lyric ideas and maybe some titles and things like that. And then I always go to my co-writing partner, who's a fellow called Glenn Bidmead, who's a fantastic songwriter. And an amazing artist too, and we just connect really well. And so this time I spent a bit more time making it probably more cohesive.
Yeah.
And I took a few different angles. This time I decided to record the tracking dates to analog tape, so the rhythm section sort of sounds warm because of tape, because tape is, I think, far superior in a lot of ways to digital recording. So I sort of really spent time honing it so it would. So, and I think I did pretty good. I mean, there's a couple of things in there that, I listen to every now and again. I go, oh, God, I shouldn't have done that, But most overall, no one's ever going to be happy with what they do, But overall, I think I did a pretty good job on this one. And for the next time, if I can do it next time, because these things cost a hell of a lot of money to make. Yeah, but if if I get the chance to do it again, which I think I will. It'll be even more cohesive and more streamlined. But I mean, it's like listening to a Rolling Stones record. The early ones and then the latter ones. I mean, Bruce Springsteen, the same thing. Steely Dan, Toto. I mean, their first record. Then you listen to Toto 4, which is only sort of 5 or 6 years later. The progression and the technology had moved along so fast, and the songwriting and their production techniques. It's the same thing, I guess. You do actually just make it up and you learn from listening to it and going, oh, I won't do that again.
Wow, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's because
exactly. Yeah.
You can't ignore it. It's there and it's there for life. So you've got to sort of make some adjustments and go, I'm not going to do that again.
Well, Kere, I mean, as an artist working from the heart, you're going to be your own worst critic there anyway, and the fact that you are, and then each time you come back, with something new, you're bringing with you the benefit of what you learned last time, and that kind of progression and self-criticism just creates better and better, in my view.
I agree, and that's nice to hear that, man, because someone said to me a long time ago, and I'll tell you who it was. It was a fantastic arranger, a string arranger and a keyboard player, producer called Jeremy Lubbock. And Jeremy Lubbock was David Foster's right-hand man for a long time. And he wrote a lot of string things for El Giro and Whitney Houston and Barbra Streisand, great artists. And I had the pleasure of working with him, the honour of actually working with him. And I would always sort of put myself down in front of him because I didn't like anything I played or whatever like that. And he did sort of tap me on the shoulder one day and said, look, don't let it get out of hand, but being hard on yourself is actually quite healthy as long as it moves in the positive direction.
Yeah.
And I've never forgotten that. Because I can be, most of us can be, just like you look at it or you listen to it and you go, oh God, what did I do that for? But as long as you learn from it and sort of try and get better at it, that's the main thing, I think.
Like you say, as long as the outcome is positive, then there's no harm in picking yourself up on the things
Absolutely.
you didn't do.
That's right.
And I guess also as a bottom line, Kere, if people are already loving your music, then each progression has to be a step up, doesn't it? It's when your music's already being loved and you're being self-critical of it in that sense, then that's a great indicator to you that you're going definitely in the right direction. Wonderful.
Yeah, I think I think so too. The sort of music I guess I'm making, or artists like myself are making, is probably a more niche market these days because there's so much just sort of rubbish out there. But and we're trying to actually do something with nice lyric, good chord progressions, good production, and so we're trying to actually sort of raise the bar, I guess, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense, you know.
I think it was Brett Costello that passed your first tunes our way and said,
That's
have
right,
a listen to Kere. And we did, and we thought, yeah, this is great, loving this, you know. And big up to Brett, love the Urban Meltdown and what he does, you know.
Yes,
brilliant.
that's right. Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I think we're about the only two that are sort of doing something. I should. No, I shouldn't say that. But you know, I don't think there's too many people making the sort of records that I'm making down this way, and I don't know there's too many other sort of people like Brett. There's probably, you know, there probably is quite a few out there, but you know, to be that proactive and actually supporting great sort of soul and R&B it's pretty cool, man. You know, you know.
Well, Ken Walker
just...
is another guy I know from Australia, and both Ken and Brett have shows on our station. So you know,
oh,
from
okay,
Australia.
all right.
So
good.
yeah, so you know, that's lovely. What are you working on now? What's coming up with you at the moment, Kere?
Well, right now, I'm the record took a long time to make. It took me nearly 16 months, over 16 months, in fact.
Wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you know, most, I guess when people say, oh, 16 months, oh yeah, well, you know, I'll get up and do a 9 to 5 every day. It's sort of different when you're making something like a record, because you're not only trying to make it, you're trying to pay for it, you're trying to make the best piece of work that you can so that it's going to stand up. You're doing it as best you can, and it's costing you a lot of money, and it wears you down. So it's worn me down a bit. So I'm sort of not doing as much at the moment. Yeah. So most of the time I'm sort of trying to push my record. I'm still doing a little bit of writing. I've got to do a bonus track for Japan. I have a release in Japan for the record with a jazz label over there called Vivid Sound. And so I've got they always ask for a bonus track, and so this time I actually had it I had a release on the last album, but I stupidly didn't record a bonus track on the last album. So this time I did. I made sure I recorded an extra one. So I've got to finish that, and so I'm just sort of chipping away on a few little things. I'm probably sort of a little bit of a recluse at the moment, but that's okay. You know, I'm just working on my own sort of music, and not just sort of slipping around doing a lot of other people's music.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, and this is probably sort of the last kind of question, was about websites and social media. Where do our listeners come and find out a lot more about Kere Buchanan? I know that you're on Facebook and so on, but did you have a website and so on? There
is a website being built. And I would suggest that it'll be kerebuchanan.com. That's it's being built as we speak. Because I have to basically. I mean, I've got 3 records really, and you know, I've got to get something online so that people can actually find out where to go. The best place is CD Baby, and they do digital downloads as well as physical CDs. They've got quite a few CDs. There of both, in fact, and in fact even Kerosene too, and Facebook. There's a musician page. I can't remember what the name of it is, Kere Buchanan, but I can't remember all the gobbledygook after it.
They can just put Kere Buchanan into the search.
I would just make Kere, that is, and they would find me somewhere there. Amazon, iTunes, of course. And physical CDs, people can email me if they. Do you mind me giving email address? Is that all right?
No, far away.
Okay, yeah. The email address is Keza, as in Keza, at optusnet, optusnet.com.au. Keza at optusnet.com.au, and they can order them from me here, and so I can just send them out through PayPal. It's pretty easy.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that's what I've got at the moment. But there will be a website.
Any thoughts of sort of getting sort of on the road with Kere Buchanan, bringing it to places?
I think after, yes, I probably will at some stage soon. I see a lot of artists go out after one record and they've got about sort of 10 or 12 songs and that's it. So, and like we were talking before, starting over was very much a learning curve. I think I probably will, but of course I've got to try and sort of work a way that I can streamline it, because on the first record, there's about 22 musicians. On this one, there's nearly 40. So
yeah, it's going to be a bit complicated. Yeah,
I seriously can't take a band on the road like that. No one can. So I have to sort of streamline it somehow. Not down this way, because this music is not really. It doesn't have a following down here, and that's nothing bad to say about Australia or New Zealand. It just doesn't have that sort of following. So I'm in contact with a few people in Scandinavia where they love this sort of music. Japan, parts of Europe. I had no idea that I would fall into some guys like yourself in the UK. That sort of hit me like a ton of bricks, because I just didn't think the sort of music would sort of penetrate there. So that shows you how much I know, really. So yeah, eventually, I think, probably in the next 6 months or so, I'll get some sort of a band together again. Like I said, I'm sort of working on a few other things, but get some sort of a small group together. Maybe get some UK players. I've got some good friends over there, and in places like France and Germany, and go over and do sort of like a stripped down version of the of the records, but it'd be great to have a
sounds absolutely brilliant. It really, yeah. I mean, that sounds like a really great thing to do, Kere, and I'm very much looking forward to the day where I can come to a Kere Buchanan gig and come and see you live.
You're a treasure. Thank you.
No, we will be there. Sound Fusion Radio crew will be there.
Thank you guys for taking R&B and soul music, my music, anybody in this sort of genre on board and playing, man, because otherwise, we don't get heard, we don't get any sales. So it's, you guys are treasures. So we thank you.
And we thank you, because without your wonderful music, we can't be treasures.
We're all treasures then.
Absolutely. Kere, right. It's been an absolutely wonderful conversation. I hope it's not too long before we get to have an interview again.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's just stay in touch, man.
Well, yeah, definitely. And I've got your email address now because you just gave it out. So that's great. And obviously we're linked on Facebook. And if there's anything you want to, if you have a new single or anything you want to pass our way. Then
what I might do is eventually, if you don't mind, just sorry to interrupt, I might sort of pass on maybe the bonus track sort of situation for Japan. And you can, I don't know whether I'm not quite sure whether the bonus track will fit the stack of songs, but if it does, great. And and you play some more music, and maybe we could do another little interview then if you want. I don't mind. It's up to you.
That's absolutely all possible. There's no problem with that whatsoever. Just amazing. Thank you for taking the time. And
hey, man, and thank you. All right, and look, you just stay in touch with me, and or vice versa, and we'll take it from there.
Absolutely.
Good man.
Fabulous. Have a wonderful day and an absolutely cracking weekend.
Okay, you too, man.
Cheers now. Take care.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Kere. Bye.